Welcome everybody to this miniature painting tutorial. I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. And it's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, which is one of the holidays where we celebrate and honor those who have served in the U.S. military, with a particular focus on those who have given their lives in service to this country. So I thought we'd do a bit of a historical miniatures painting tutorial with some blood red skies, with a focus on maybe a little bit lesser known aspect of U.S. military history. So let's paint up a British RAF Hawker Hurricane with Eagle Squadron markings. So let's get started. So as we're priming these miniatures with a leather brown primer from the Army Painters War Paint series, let's talk quickly about what the Eagle Squadrons were. The United States did not join World War II until after the attack in Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. However, before that, they were Americans who wanted to join the war effort against the Axis powers. So a number of civilian pilots found a way to join the Royal Air Force over in England, and these pilots are grouped together into what were called Eagle Squadrons. So even though they flew British aircraft and fought for the British Royal Air Force, they were all Americans, and eventually later on in the war, those squadrons' command was transferred to the United States Army Air Force. The first step is to get plenty of contrast between all the detailed lines and the rest of the fuselage and wings of the aircraft. So on the bottom to do that, I'm going to apply a layer of Caliban green. This is from Games Workshop Citadel line of paints. I'm going to thin it down quite a bit and focus a lot on getting it into the individual spaces between the various panels and control surfaces and things like that. For this part of the process, I am using an Artificer Layer extra small brush from Games Workshop Citadel line of painting tools. There is absolutely no need to be clean at all for this part of the process. Just slap paint on and try to get it in between all the recesses. So now it's time to do something similar for the top, but we're going to be using Rhinox Hide from Games Workshop Citadel line of paints. But with the top, we do need to be a little bit cleaner. So that is where this is going to come in. This is Tamiya masking tape designed for models. And I'm using this to block off areas of the miniature instead of normal masking tape, because when it comes to miniature work, I haven't had great luck with normal masking tape on miniatures. Paint tends to leak a little bit underneath it, so hopefully this stuff will work better. There isn't a whole lot of detail over here right now, so I don't need to worry about masking off kind of the back part of the fuselage. I'm just going to work on the wings as well as the tail. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing, but like I said, this time we're using Rhinox Hide from Games Workshop Citadel line of paints. So now it's time to talk about why we're painting these guys in a backwards fashion. Here are the three paints that I'm actually going to be using to apply the final colors. Now, if I've read the serial numbers correctly, and I may not have, but these three are very, very close to the actual colors that the British used for the Royal Air Force during early World War II. So these Vallejo colors here, which is number 7893 US dark green, 7873 US field drab, and this airbrush color 71009 duck egg green are the three primary colors that the British RAF used. So these two here form the camouflage pattern that's going to be on the top of the aircraft. This airbrush paint that I'm actually going to be brushing on, because I guess I can do that with it, is what the bottom of the aircraft color was like. I've painted up several other fighters. I have some Spitfires I've painted up trying out different methods. And this method of wear, what I'm going to do is we've already painted the dark details first. Now I'm going to essentially dry brush the actual colors on top of this. And that's a great way to get the contrast without having to try to worry about getting paint inside all little detail lines over again. And then that way, because you've already got the contrast of the details done, you don't have to go back, apply a wash, and ruin the more historical look of your miniature. So I'm going to take some of this duck egg green. This is all from Vallejo's Air line, and I'm going to start dry brushing this on the bottom of the aircraft. And for the dry brushing process, I am going to be using a dry brush from the Army Painters Wargamer series. And this is definitely going to be one of those things where it's like, well, it's going to take like 5 or 6 layers. This is not going to be a 1-layer job. All right, well, after maybe 6 to 10 layers, depending on how particular you want to be in getting the color nice and smooth, you can call this step done. We're going to flip our miniatures over, and we're going to do the exact same thing for the top color. Since you are going layer by layer with dry brushing, this is not a bad process to have 2 or 3 miniatures ready to go to where you can swap between each one, put a layer on, let it dry, then move to the next. And before we get to the top layer, I do want to mask off some of the areas. So this is where I'm going to define the maximum region of the top color. And hopefully, if I do things right, that the paint will not leak through this time. For the top color, this is where I'm using the 7083 US Field Drab. And at the moment, I'm only going to work on the wings. I will move on to other parts of the fuselage after the wings are done. Same process as before. One layer at a time, I'm going to dry brush this color on until I'm satisfied with how well my color is coated. Wings are done. Let's change the mask around and start working on the fuselage. So there we go, we're all set. They don't have to be perfect because, you know, they're warplanes, so they get shot at, they get in combat, and that wears them down and gets them dirty, grungy, all that kind of stuff. And then I need to finish up the tails. The tails here do need to be all brown. So now let's talk about the camouflage patterns of these fighter craft. I was unable to find a color photo of them from 1941. However, there is one high-quality black and white photo you can find on Wikipedia for one of the Eagle Squadrons. It is difficult to make out the complete camouflage pattern there, but what you can tell from the tails, it looks like it's used in a fairly common camouflage pattern you would have found in the Spitfire. And looking through what some other historians have done, I'll put a few links to these in the show notes, the camouflage patterns for the Hawker Hurricane Eagle Squadrons more or less match the standard one you'd found on the Spitfires at the time. Conveniently, I have a document here that shows the camouflage patterns of the Spitfire. This was put together by a James Golding, and I will put a link to this in the show notes where you can find this document in case you want to accurately recreate this pattern of RAF fighter camouflage. There is one modern color photo of a Hawker Hurricane, and it has a Spitfire camouflage pattern, but it's flipped left to right. So maybe that was something that was done in some of the fighters, but I'm going to go ahead and just keep the traditional Spitfire color pattern going. For the green color, I'm going with the US Dark Green. This is Vallejo model color 70.893. I'm bringing back out my Artificer Layer extra small brush, and it really just becomes a very simple patient paint job of tracing out this camouflage pattern and then coloring it in. And when coloring in, you probably do want to apply very light strokes to try to avoid getting the paint in the little details. If you do get in there, it's not a big deal. Alright, two planes that look pretty darn good, and they're very, very similar looking. Now we're going to move on to some final details. First up, we're going to paint the canopy glass. For my canopies, I'm going to be working with the Altdorf Guard Blue from Games Workshop's Citadel line of paints. It really doesn't matter what color you want to use here. Probably a bluish because you're thinking of it reflecting the color of the sky, but your choice can be whatever you want it to be. This is about using incredibly small amounts of paint and a very fine, sharp tip brush to get it in the right spot. Next up, let's paint the nose cone for the propellers. And for that, I'm just going to use some linen white from Reaper's Master Series. You can tell from some of the pictures the nose cone is a little bit lighter than the greenish shade underneath the fighter craft, so that's why I'm choosing this linen white color. So next up is a little stripe that runs along the back of the fuselage right here in front of the tail, and that looks to be about the same green color that is the bottom of the aircraft. Now using the duck egg green, I'm going to very carefully paint this stripe in, and hopefully the masking tape works. Yeah, hopefully. And apparently there's a little bit of brown mixed in this green, so yeah, let's get a few more layers of it on here. So in a moment here, we're going to put on these decals. I was looking up what this one was for. They're for the bottom of the wings. Ugh, no, I'm not going to do that. See, water transfer decals are my enemy. I'll just put that out there right now. So the less I use them, the happier I am. All right, so let me fix up some of the screw-ups where the paint ran out. All right, now it's time for the water transfer decals. I've got some water sitting over here. I'm going to work one plane at a time. So as I mentioned a moment before, I just got really bad luck with them. I've got a nice history of just really hosing these things bad. So what I'm going to do is cut out each of the water transfers that I need. These two here go on the wings of the Hawker Hurricanes. And I'm cutting each one of the water transfers out, so each one's on its own little piece of material. And then finally, we've got these little striped things here. These little stripe designs go on the tail. Carefully, I need to maneuver the water transfer decal here with a Q-tip. Put it where it goes. So these go somewhere here near the outsides of the wing. And that's pretty good like that. Hey, that one actually went on. So where's the other one that I need to fix? Okay, this isn't the end of the it's not the end of the world, actually. Let me just stick that on there and I'll maneuver it in place. Well, it happens. Got all this work and the frickin' water decals just hose you over. That's right, it's battle damage, right? Oh, no. That's the good. Now you're on 90 degrees rotated. Okay, we're only going to show the aircraft on this side. Don't look at that side, ever. So let's now talk about our squadron designation, and then we'll be able to call this process done. British fighters in World War II had a 3-letter designation effectively. They had a 2-letter on this side of the symbol, which indicated what squadron they were part of. And then they had another letter that indicated what aircraft in that squadron they were. So for this particular Eagle Squadron, I'm going to be using the designation XR. That was one of the 3 squadron designations for Eagle Squadron. And then the letter over here can really be anything you want, A, B, C, D, whatever. Very carefully with my off-white paint, I'm going to work backwards, actually. So let's start with an R. Working backwards is that way so I don't have to squish the R right up against the logo. You'd think you could space 2 letters, but I can fail at things like that, trust me. You just saw the whole debacle with the stupid water transfer decals. I hate those things. And then I think for this guy, let's make it easy. We're going to be C. Then repeat the process on the other side. It's like so awful. That's just terrible. Okay, we need to battle damage it up. Yeah, I want to battle damage this side up. Make it look like he's got shot a few times, just to hide the fact that he's just done a shoddy job of putting those water decals on. So for that, we're going to be using some Abaddon Black. This is a base coat from Games Workshop Citadel line of paints. A few bullet holes, and do the same thing up here. I've got this really poorly applied decal. There we go. Just to give me an excuse as to why those things look just terrible. Something went horribly wrong. But alright, let's get this guy in a stand and we'll call our Eagle Squadron painting tutorial done. So thank you guys all for watching. Once again, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. Go ahead and subscribe here to this YouTube channel to get other videos like this, whether it's painting miniatures or robotics, because that somehow is like this as well. Or who knows what else I'll be working on coming up here in the not too distant future. So thank you guys all for watching and have a great week.